And we got, what about this? And what this guy here? And our guy said, stop. Listen, you're all fired. Every one of you is fired. And now build out the positions in the way they need to work for the business to work. And that was our first, for me, aha, epiphany moment. Then we built out the seats, the way we saw the high level stuff. And for me, I see you got your marketing and sales, you've got operations, you've got human resources and finance. So we built out those responsibilities. Then,
have you ever wondered how successful architecture, engineering, and construction companies scale their business?
Or have you ever wanted guidance on how to get more growth, wealth, and freedom from your AEC company?
Well, then you're in luck. Hi, I'm Will Forat.
And I'm Justin Nagel, and we're your podcast hosts.
We interview successful AEC business leaders to learn how they use people, process, and technology to scale their businesses.
So sit back and get ready to learn from the industry's best. This is
Building Scale.
Hey listeners, it's Will here. Our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy. If you've ever listened to our show, then you know that the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology. So if you suspect technology is your weak link, then book a call with us to see where we can help maximize your company's IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
Today's guest is third-generation owner of Holdsworth Construction, Grant Holdsworth. Grant is a seasoned builder who graduated from Northern Arizona University in 2009 with a degree in construction management. He started his career at Walsh Construction in Pennsylvania, serving as a project engineer on the large hydroelectric power plant. And in 2012, he became a project manager at Truesdell Corporation in Tempe, following a diverse infrastructure projects across the Southwest. And in 2015, Grant returned to the family business, where he spent the last 10 years driving growth and building scale here. Holdsworth Construction is a general contractor known for delivering projects on time, on budget, and with top quality results. And with all that said, Grant, welcome to the show.
all right, man, excited to be here. Well said.
Yes, we are excited to have you. The first time we met, Grant, I had some tacos. You had a PB&J burger, which I recommended. It seemed to go well. You seemed to enjoy it a ton. I knew instantly that I wanted to talk to you more. That was pretty straightforward. Your story's cool. Your mindset's right. The whole vibe, as the kids say these days, was just on point. So I said a bunch of nice things, but tell us the real story. Tell us how you got into construction, what that looked like, third generation deep, and then tell us about the company itself.
Yeah, well, luckily I just happened to be born into it. My grandpa was an industrial arts professor starting in '69 before I was even born. And my mom and dad got started young, and he was getting a degree in civil engineering, had aspirations to be a bridge builder. So him and I started Tonka toys, playing in the sandbox, was exposed to it at a very young age. And then of course, just around it all the time. And through just the genuine joy of the building process, the problem solving, and early exposure, I just happened to kind of fall in and followed from there. From time I was starting in middle school, as I got old enough to really kind of get on the job side, I pushed brooms, cleaned up. By the time I was in high school, I could run a framing crew or a trim crew and, read plans, lay out the floor, snap the lines, lay out the walls, the studs, do rough openings. And then as I continued to grow up, I got into college. We were developing a big thing in Ponderosa Trails, and I was the wrap-up guy. So from the time we got to drywall to C of O, I would finish the process, and I was going to school. So it was a reasonable part-time effort. And then we ended up at one point, as we were building that, got to 60 houses in various stages of construction. So it got too big that I could manage while still going to class. Became the punch list guy. So I wrapped up all the little things just because I was good with my hands and had been doing it a long time. I could fix a variety of things, leaks and punch list oriented stuff to get project wrapped up. And then finished my degree, went to Pennsylvania and worked on that hydroelectric power plant. Again, that company, Walsh, also self-performed, similar to what we do now. And I got to get my hands on lots of different things, tunneling and blasting, rock anchors, giant jacks, and a lot of really cool, huge scale construction. I mean, that hydroelectric power plant, the job was so big, we built 2 temporary bridges just for access that we then tore down at the end.
Wow.
Just as one small aspect. For me, the bridge was probably, the cost of building a bridge was more than any single job I've ever done. It was just a temporary structure to take down at the end when we were finished. So all of that was a great experience. So just starting young and had a lot of passion for it. And always had the mentality of I wanted to go out and bring value back to our business. My dad always told me, hey, you can always work if there's something for you to do. But if you want to basically have anything to do with taking it over, I'm not going to give it to you. You're going to take it from me. So I always had the mentality as I went out. I learned a lot at Walsh 3 years in Truesdale. Opportunity presented itself to come back, and I tried to bring a lot of different perspective, construction experience, and knowledge back to add to the pile of knowledge that will result in growth.
That's ironic that Dad wanted to be a bridge builder, and you literally I just had to build two so I could build the other thing. And then I'm going to tear those down. That's very ironic.
Right. Yeah. It was cool. Sheet pile, these huge giant steel columns that we were pounding down in the middle of the river. It was really cool stuff.
No, that's awesome. So you got all this experience. Then you come back home. What does that look like? What does coming home to the family business look like as the grandson and then obviously son of the current owner?
So
hold on. Was that always the plan? That's the other question.
It was, yes. Again, just because my whole family's a bit of an entrepreneur. My uncle Mike owns his own law firm. My uncle Matt is a CPA and owns his own accounting firm. So just because I got involved in it so young, I've always had the idea of wanting to run and operate my own business. So, and because of how I was raised, specifically my grandpa, add value, bring something back to the table. Don't just kind of start to ride the coattails. You need to push and lift with the rest of the operation. So as I left, I mean, it wasn't necessarily known as a guarantee, but it was my mentality to want to learn, gather as much information as I could on how things operated, and bring back tangible, useful knowledge to the business when the opportunity presented itself. So then in 2015, basically 10 years ago, actually it would have been 10 years ago on September 1st when I officially came over. So we're right at the 10-year anniversary. My dad came to me and said, hey, we're getting pretty busy again, as they were kind of climbing back out of the 2008 setback. I think it'd be a good time to come back into the business. We've got a job down here, but here's the stipulations. It's not a position. You will not be collecting a salary. You will have to find more work and make it profitable, or you will have to go find another job somewhere else. So I thought about it, and I felt it was the right time. I had the right experience, the right knowledge, and started that job. While I was doing that job and completing it, was a remodel in the Biltmore for a guy that we had a lot of good standing history with. And from there, I networked and bid work and did the work, all the little aspects of kind of wearing every hat the whole way till I could finally scale over the last 10 years to now press my influence into Flagstaff and start to modify how that office operates and bring it all back together into kind of one effort.
Nice. So you came in and it was, hey, you got to hunt and make it profitable. Like you got to do the full scope of it. So then was that the beginning of hey, this is the start of the transition? You coming in will be start of this transition process, or was that later down the line?
Well, I think, it was probably at that time, that was the long-term goal. But anything in business, as you know, you never can tell where it might lead from there. But in time, after about 5 years, I think that it became obvious that it was going to work. It was sinking in. We were getting more momentum. We were bringing in more projects. We were adding more people. So then I think I was given kind of the runway then to get in and start to influence how we operated in Flag. But no question, I think my dad wanted to see and confirm that I had what it took to really make it operate and not preemptively get into a situation where you could ultimately run a long-standing business into the ground because you're not prepared for the rigor of running a business.
So sorry, go ahead, Will.
I was just going to quick segue here. You talked a little bit about the residential. You doing just residential, or is it residential and commercial?
We do residential and commercial. Now, before then, we had done one-offs. We replaced an expansion joint on a bridge deck in Wilcox, where we had to hammer out the expansion joint, and there's a piece of metal in there that allows the bridge to move. Hammered that out and replaced that. We did some parks for the Indian community in Peach Springs. We've done a helicopter, little airport landing pad touring facility on the North Rim. But as a percentage, we were probably 5% commercial, 95% residential in the beginning years of kind of really turning into a full-time operation.
Okay, we'll get back to that. Justin, we'll go ahead.
Yeah, so I was thinking, obviously, Grandpa started it, transition to Dad, then to you. One, what did the transition from Grandpa to Dad look like? And then how is that different than your transition between you and your dad?
Yeah, when my grandpa had it, it was called GH & Sons at the time. It was more of a part-time thing. He loves to fish, loves to hunt, was a professor, was trying to basically just find a way to fill his time through the summer and supplement some income so he could go fishing and hunting. So, and he, again, same thing as the common thread, just a genuine joy of building things. He's really good at it, teaching people how to build cabinets. He builds his own fly rods from scratch, ties his own flies. It's just kind of part of who he is. Through circumstances similar to mine, it appeared to be a good opportunity for him to come in the business. And that's really when it became a full-time effort. That was in 97. Then, started to really push hard, did some spec houses, started to get some traction. Shortly after that, it might have been 99 or early 2000, my grandpa was like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, this is turning into a full-time job again. I don't want to work this hard. So it's all yours. I'm going to go try to retire for real this time. After he retired from NAU, then worked for 2 years, like, okay, this is just getting more than I anticipated. And he's a little bit risk adverse. Of course, running a business is kind of a risky undertaking. So then from 97 until basically 2015, my dad was kind of the main show that ran the whole deal. Now I step in 2015 where my grandpa was like, listen, I'm out. There's been a little bit more give and take, a little bit more friction of the handoff. I think it's just more about kind of handing the baton properly. Hey, have you got it? Waiting for a good return back to know that the baton is going to be carried forward correctly, again, to grow and build scale and opportunity for an operation that is outside of just now, maybe more than just the family members.
Yeah, does that put the pressure on, maybe, right? Like it's Grandpa started this thing on the side as he was teaching, and then like, oh, this is too big because your dad wants to make it bigger. And now you on top of that, all right, well, now I want to make it even more. I want to scale this thing even more than we already have. Does that, put the pressure on, you as in like, hey, we have to do more, as well as, you start knocking on the concept of legacy and like, what does that mean? What does the company mean? Now it's been around for, 30, 40 years, in this like half part-time all the way to then full-blown operation. What does that look like?
Yeah, there's definitely some resistance to, he's kind of like, hey, listen, this has been great. I get to build stuff. I do what I want. It's manageable. It's within my kind of orbit of understanding. I'm tied into all the things that are going on, to really leaning into allowing your team members and trusted kind of higher level leadership team to truly be delegated to and trust that the activity is going to get handled. There was definitely a lot of handoff and that sort of opening understanding. I think for a long time, there was a lot of conversation about, I think more of, let's get the work and run it really well, make it very profitable. We'll do it. And then, get the next job and move to that one, where I was more, well, let's get the job. Let's build systems and operations around that job that allows our team members to run the work forward in the way we like to have the work done, and the quality we expect, on time, on budget, top quality. That was a transition period for sure, but I think that there's been a lot more buy into it now that he can see, hey, now I really can now come full circle and just go do the stuff I like, go back in the wood shop, build the stuff we build in-house, let the operations and day-to-day of the business fall to the other people. And now I just kind of get to do what I want, when I want, leave, go out of town. So there was some handoff. There was some friction and resistance to not want to push beyond that comfort zone of having your hands in kind of everything all the time, which I get. I mean, that's a comfortable place to be, to know that you're driving everything forward in a way that you're essentially accountable for anything that goes wrong. So it's hard to put that into other people's hands.
You said something which I almost forgot. You have something that's really interesting about you guys. You said mill shop, which means you kind of have some manufacturing going on. Why don't you talk about that, a little bit of the history of that? Because not everyone has something like that. Why do you have it? Why did it start? Why don't you talk a little bit about that?
It starts with, again, it kind of goes back to the industrial arts aspect of where we came from and building cabinets. At one point when I was younger, we built a cabinet package on site for the house from scratch. We'd set up quasi wood shop and build it from there. And I think it's just the enjoyment that drives that side of it. And I think that I'm noticing a bit more of a trend that there was a big shift to automation, go faster, CNC machines, spit it out, makes it very cost effective. But now we've found ourselves in the Valley in a lot of cases where if it's unique or something not in the ordinary, it's really hard to get it built. And there's a big vacuum for that sort of service. We've done common area millwork packages that have that need where it's a uniquely built thing from wood that requires a bit more hands-on than a box or a cabinet face frames that can be more production. So we started with building, I think one of the houses we built in Forest Highlands, we built the front door for a guy from scratch. And from there, it just has always been kind of something people see it. It's your main focal point as you approach a house. And we have built many front doors from there. And then just that turned into other communication and discussions. We just did the Herd Museum's remodel down there. And we were the only guy that could even get bidding on it because they kind of know through the grapevine that we're woodworkers. That's what we do. And they call us and say, hey, listen, we can't even get anyone to give us a number. There's no one who even bid on it. That's like the third or fourth job. We've been the only guy to even get a number put together, which we would have to fundamentally change the way it was designed. The details wouldn't work. The species of wood called out wouldn't work. So that's kind of started to take on its own gravitational pull, and we like to do it. So now we're kind of leaning into it and expanding the shop so we have more capacity to build higher. And again, same back to educating people. How can we get our internal team members educated on how building a door style and our micro laminated piece of equipment so that we can ramp up our ability to produce it? That's not basically, there's only a handful of us in the company right now that can do it. We got to work on our internal education process to get people more tied into how it works and how to.
That almost turns into a full-on marketing arm as well, right? Because you're like, hey, somebody sees that door, sees that millwork, that piece, they're like, holy crap, where'd you get that? Like, that's what I want on my house, or that's what I want in my space.
Yeah.
And then it kind of becomes that whole other thing that helps the other side of the business, the sales and marketing side.
It does. And then we've had it many times. People ask, oh, where on earth did you get that front door? I've never seen anything like it. Well, we made it in-house. Man, you got to do more of that. But the challenge of that is, as we talk about scale and systems and operations, custom building stuff from wood is inherently a little bit resistant to scale and systematic operations. And you start to lean into, again, back into CNC and production made stuff. You know, I think I do want to scale it. I want to keep that handmade on. It's going to come down to educating people so that when we do deliver that end result, that which is, well, I don't want to oversell ourselves. It starts to have its own pull. Now we get to the point where I can't build enough of it, or say my dad can't do enough of it, that we start to put out a woodworking product that doesn't meet our standard before. And then you kind of squash it. So we're working our way through that. In fact, downstairs right now, we've got some guys working in the shop. They're working with some Coruscant white oak on some custom cella stuff we're building for an apartment complex called Solace Ballpark, I think. Okay. But again, it was something they couldn't get made. It's not a pre-made product, which a lot of acoustical systems are that way. So we're working towards fundamentally educating people so we can systematically build custom built stuff.
I mean, there's a lot of work behind anything that's custom, right? So if you have no automation, and sometimes I'm sure even the design concepts go through iterations of back and forth. Because once you make that cut, then you're either cursing or you're really happy.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, that's the trick of it. Most really good carpenters are finding the best way to cover up the stuff they messed up or miscut. I mean, that's what at some point, because there's so many things, you are going to have to find a way to creatively solve little issues, miscut a piece or a splinter, or you hit a weird grain wrong and it pulled the wood out. You know, there's lots of little things you've got to be able to solve as you go. Or it's either right or wrong. Sometimes it's just throw the piece away. It's ruined. Start another piece. It's just there's no saving it.
How does it go? How does the saying go? Measure once, curse twice.
That's right.
I was thinking you measure twice, cut once, right? But like make sure the design is actually finalized before you start measuring.
Your cut sheet, which is one aspect of carpentry, is you usually got to have it sketched out, and we sketch it by hand usually with dimensions, and then you got to make a cut sheet. So you start to think through styles and rails, and as the joinery goes together, you've got to think about, okay, well, there's going to be the style and rail with a cope and stick. You don't just cut, okay, I want a door 3 feet wide. You don't cut the style 3 feet. You got to cut it less the style width plus now your tongue and groove piece that goes into it. So if you don't start with a cut list and have an idea up front, begin with the end in mind, there's just no way you're going to have it done right. And even still with a cut list, if you don't add this and subtract 3/8 and 1 more eighth back and then minus 5 inches, it can get sideways really quick.
Well, I'm going to invite you to my house. I built this built-in fireplace entertainment thing that floats on the wall, which is amazing. But, took me probably 10 times the amount of time it'd take you. And, probably a hundredth of the quality. But that's not the point. The point is yes, if you don't have some idea of like what this looks like at the end, and then like, oh, I need a half inch here or there because of all that stuff. Yeah, I went through that, and it was quite the fun endeavor. But to your point, custom stuff takes time. Like there's no way to just like, oh, I just bought this from wherever, IKEA, wherever.
Yeah, pre-made kit,
exactly.
Yeah. Or the production. So, it's easy enough to put a cut list together and lay it out for people to then perform and use. You got thickness planers and joiners and table saw and the equipment and the tools you need. If you can provide to them an efficient way to create the cut list and make the pieces and educate them there, it can go well. It can go together really well. If you make a nice cut list and you use the equipment right, you can have efficiency and still build custom things with proper planning for sure.
So you mentioned both the residential and the commercial side. Usually somebody doesn't want to do both. Like that is most of the time. There's very different feelings, let's go put it that way, that go into each of those areas. But you are more in the opinion of a building's a building. You got four walls, ceiling, and floor. Got to build the same way. How are you able to do both of those and do them at a high level?
Again, the sequencing of construction is really at the heart of making it run well. Have it sequenced well, pre-planning, know when you need to have materials like well in advance. I think it is the commercial approach. And I might be a little bit more weighted to enjoying commercial just because of dealing with other professionals in the industry. It is a little bit more leaning to building scale and scalability and systems around commercial. But at some point realized that, the sequence and order things have to happen is the same. You got to come out of the dirt, you put your floor down, you build your walls, you put in the MEPs. You need to know your paint color, then the drywall goes on, the flooring goes in, the tile goes down, the doors. So then I thought, how could I take the aspect of residential that is the more challenging aspect of it, of dealing with unprofessional people in the industry and kind of educating them in the process while applying some of the stuff and efficiencies I like in commercial. So that's really that's where I bring it together, is that just the process of problem solving, building things is my favorite thing to do. So residential and commercial offer the same outcome. And we've now used some of our commercial oriented mindsets to better organize the approach in residential. And it's made our process more enjoyable, not only for us, but for the homeowner. They're guided through the process in a cleaner way, the way that an architect might lay out a spec book. We've kind of organized the categories, aligned with the CSI code, which is born from commercial construction, to organize it in a way that homeowners can make more timely decisions. At the end of the day, as I thought more about it, that's the more frustrating part of residential, is the timeliness in decision making. We want to build a custom end result for people, so it's basically unlimited in their need to want to change this. What about this? What about that? To narrowing down their decision window, prioritized by the time it needs to be done in, to create a smoother process for everyone. And it's been outstanding, because residential, you get to build really beautiful, long-lasting things. It's meant to be, people enjoy to be there. Most of the houses we get to build, it's kind of a representation of their hard work and sacrifice over the years to create whatever success they did, and they want their friends to see it. That part is really exciting and fun for me. Or even a business. A lot of times you do a TI, you're bringing it, you're manifesting what they want to present to people, who they are in the building process. One, highly emotional, residential. One is very time sensitive. Get it done. Let's get this baby opened up, make it look nice, do it well, and then I'm in business.
Well, on the residential side, your typical client is going to be the housewife, or the one that's making all the, inside decisions, right? I'm not even talking about just internal design, just anything that's inside of the house, they're having to make a decision. So what I heard, just to translate, is you're actually doing sort of a human scheduling. All right. So you're not doing everything all up front, like with the architect up at front. And then, because what that really does, this process that you have, is you're scheduling time frames. They're sort of like moving time frames. And I wouldn't call it just in time, but you're essentially, what you're trying to do is change how many decisions have to be made all at once, which I'm guessing also then reduces frustration, right? Can you talk a little bit more about that? Like, just to give an idea of like what something is working on, what decisions have to be made, and like what's coming. Can you give like an example of like what this looks like?
Yeah. So for a while, it seemed like we would get going, and then, something would rear its head, and we realized, oh man, who finished the cabinets and who did, and then we would get a hold of home and like, hey man, there's these two things. We have to get this figured out right away or it's going to start to slow the job down. They started to feel super hectic. And then they would give us feedback like, hey guys, like we wanted some more time to make these decisions. And we were focused on some of these other bells and whistles. And in their mind, yeah, these are great. We're picking our stuff out, but it wasn't urgent. So as we thought about, well, we know we need to start making these decisions and they need to be made. Why not get some structure around it so that we can give them the time they'd like to anticipate? So if you'd say, hey, listen, don't look at your tile selections right now. We've got 12 more weeks for that. And most of that doesn't have a long lead time. Let's get started on some of your immediate stuff. So before that was kind of a verbal effort and we would communicate that off a Gantt chart. Once we started to pump that into Procore and really break it down by code and then build a clean Gantt chart schedule, that's when we saw, okay, now we can prioritize the selections by category every time. And there's a pattern to the cadence that the work happens every time. So let's get them in front of these three things first. Let's get in front of the cabinets. Let's get in front of windows. Let's get in front of, steel or some other structural components that need to get right. Then let's move them into flooring. We'll move them into shingles. We'll move them into the stuff. And that's when we really started to then have a way for them to go out and say, here's what we need you to start looking at. Here's to prioritize. Here's how much time you have. This is your typical lead time. It just really gave a calmness to say, hey, listen, don't even worry about these other 15, 20 outstanding decisions. Just worry about these three right now. Just worry about those. We got plenty of time, and their ability to allow them to pin that comfortably and know that they're focusing on what's urgent and not get pulled into what's the funnest stuff to pick out. It gave them the time they wanted to be with it, think about it, get it in front of us. We're not putting the pressure on them the last minute to try to make decisions in something they're really uncomfortable with. And there's a permanence in making these selections. You can't go through and do a $250,000 cabinet package and then hastily get a color. You're like, man, I just really don't like. It's not like you just go and just try it again. It's set. That's the end of it. So having their time frame, giving a window on how long they could have to make the decision and not make them feel scrambled. At the end of the day, they almost make this decision in the same amount of time or even less time than when they were rushed. And they're really happy with it. And it usually results in less changes down the road. And we can get the material there even earlier in its process. So we're not down to waiting or this got pushed back this week or 2 weeks and 3 weeks late to keep the job moving forward.
So you're removing decision fatigue. I mean, end result is you're removing decision fatigue because there's like literally 1,000 decisions that you can make in a home. And some of the homes that you're making are just big and beautiful. So maybe more than that. So if you're making these all in advance, you're taking into consideration also the lead time as well as the time, like the physical lead time of whatever the material is, plus the lead time of what it takes to build it or to construct it or whatever it is that you're doing or place it, right? You're taking all those things into consideration. So what happens if someone doesn't make a decision or doesn't make a decision on time?
So I think we communicate to them that above all else, it's important that we get you what you want. And we want you to make the right decision, get you something you're happy with. If in this time frame we can't make the decision, that's totally fine. We'll continue to work our way through it. Just know that it's going to have this amount of impact to the finish date. And I think that also gives them where rather than don't tell them or no one's really clear on it, now they're making decisions, this happened, and then all of a sudden you're a month and a half behind because you're waiting on decisions. They didn't necessarily understand that might be a result of selections being made. I think when they know, listen, you know what, I get it. If we lose a week on a 18-month project or a 2-year project or whatever it might be, they still feel like they're in the driver's seat. This is important to us. We understand that it might cause some delays. I want to make sure this is right. Totally fine. Take the time you need. We'll give you feedback. Just know that it could have some duration impact. And I think when that communication happens and then it does inevitably move back a little bit at the end, there's a reason that they know, hey, I understand now that it took a month past our planned finish date, but we made these 4 decisions that were critical to us. They're very important and we got exactly what we wanted. Nope. It doesn't make it's advantage for us for the job to move forward quickly. We have general conditions and stuff that just becomes more costly as the job progresses forward in time, but it rarely turns into months and months, but it really does help them feel like it was my decision. And if the job finishes a month late, I still got what I want. And it makes everyone just understands that's the outcome.
So that's on the sort of the customer side, but on the business side, right? If a decision hasn't been made, then you have a crew that's not working, right? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, well, for the most part, luckily, we've usually got about 5 to 6 projects running at the same time. And because we self-perform, the stuff we self-perform usually is the very heavy lifting at the beginning. And then we kind of move out of there, and then it's the rough trades and electrical and those. And then we're not back in until all the MEPs are done, the drywall's up, the painting's in, the flooring's going down. Then we have our trim crew come back in. So we do have a bit of a way to pull guys, put them over here just because of multiple jobs. If we were down to one job, it would be more challenging to offer that sort of delay, flexibility. But because we like to filter in little remodels, and we usually communicate with hey, listen, we're happy to do this for you. Just know that it's going to be fill-in work. There might be times where we don't have people there. So we work to have kind of the Tetris game of fitting little things in. So if a job may come to a standstill because of decisions waiting to be made, we can move them to here. We'll just put a bigger crew on something else for a while. Because it is important to keep good people busy, because if you don't have them busy, they're going to go somewhere else to work. But we have a multitude of projects running all the time, so we can kind of plug and play and put them where we need to keep them busy.
And doesn't your build time also increase just because of the way you're doing things, especially with all the decisions? If you have all the decisions made up front, wouldn't that make more sense? Why do it your way?
Well, there's something I think what we've noticed is some homeowners want to have a more tangible experience. When you look at a plan, and you've been doing it a long time, you can start to look at elevations and all the things that make up a full plan set to kind of understand what the space is going to feel like. Mm-hmm. But there has been a lot of times as we've gotten underway, oh man, this isn't as big as I thought it would be. Can we move this? Or this wasn't, I want to change this window. So I think they just inherently want it to be somewhat open still and not set in stone as they go through the building process.
Okay.
But we have to hold them a little bit reasonable there, because it's hard to try to come back and change things around, let's say after drywall. So an example, we do try to hold a little bit of pressure. Framing is done. We're going to do a pre-electrical. This is kind of your one time to really make this efficient and effective. So let's take our time. And sometimes our electrical walk will be a full 4, 5, 6, 7 hours. We have a way to pull up the plan electronically within Procore. We mark it all up. Light switch here, turn it over here, cans here, sconces on here. And so there are stages where we try to say, hey, this is our last step to really make changes that are easy. From here, it's going to be very expensive and very hard. But they still want to have the ability to walk the house and imagine, I'm coming in the front door, I put my keys right here, I want my switches, and I want them to turn on this. But what if they come in from this way? So we try to get as much decision-making we can as early as possible, but there's just some things they just want to leave in the open until they get to feel the house, feel how it works.
Okay.
Yeah. That, I think when we were talking about this before, you had mentioned it's the decision fatigue that Will mentioned. You had said it's kind of like Netflix. When you just turn it on, there's a ton of different options. And if you have no idea, it's you're just going to sit there scrolling through the options. You're not going to actually make a decision. Correct. And then an hour later, you're just going to turn it off and go upstairs and go to bed. So saying, hey, let's just do the action on Monday, the comedy on Tuesday, going forth. It's that then solves some of these problems. It keeps you moving and then removes some of that decision fatigue, even though certain things still have to happen at certain times in the process, because they do want to have that, this is how the house is going to flow and feel, and I'm actually standing in it. So yeah,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, lay it out. Listen, Monday's going to be action, Tuesday's comedy, Thursday is romance, and maybe on Friday you had 2 genres. You know what? Let's do the genre on Thursday instead of Friday. You have a little bit of that flexibility, but open up Netflix, go to your action category. You just got one. You got one bar to scroll across. You're going to pick a movie and feel less pressure and be happier with your choice if you just knew you were going for action.
Yeah. You
don't flip around. Maybe comedy, maybe end up creating faster decision making with less pressure.
Yes, which me and Will love structure. So much so that it actually brings us into our next topic here of EOS. You're also an EOS company. We're an EOS company. We've been doing it for 6+ years or something like that, but you're new to this. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your current experience with going into an EOS structure.
Yeah, I was actually having lunch with a guy who runs a roofing company. I was kind of explaining to him some of my feeling of stagnation and our ability to grow and inefficiency. I was like, man, our key players are working harder and I'm working harder. And I just feel like I'm losing my ability to push through to this next stage. And he said, dude, you gotta go look into this EOS thing. That was my first introduction. I cruised it over it really quickly. I was kind of in a quick hurry. I was like, oh, wow, man, that's way more involved than I thought. So as I started to read and then I got traction right there and listened to traction, then that's when I really started to see how it needed to be implemented. And then through some more communication, as I was kind of kicking around trying to find a way to find those efficiencies I was hunting for, to push beyond a bit of our slow and growth, I got introduced to our implementer who we're using now. And man, it was, as I started to learn more, I read traction, I could see how I read another book called The E-Myth. And there was one phrase in there that I always build a place where ordinary people can do extraordinary things. And it's not ordinary in that they're not cool people. It's that maybe help someone who's earlier in their experience produce really high-end results. And that in the core is EOS. And as we got on our first meeting, it went totally different than I thought. We were going back and forth trying to set up our chart of accountability, which we never really had a good version of that. And we got, what about this? And what this guy here? And he said, our guy said, stop. Listen, you're all fired. Every one of you is fired. And now build out the positions in the way they need to work for the business to work. And that was our first, for me, aha, epiphany moment. Then we built out the seats, the way we saw the high level stuff. And for me, I see you've got your marketing and sales, you've got operations, you've got human resources and finance. So we built out those responsibilities. Then we reassigned ourselves back in the business. And from there, that move alone to clarity in who's doing what and why, now moving down the kind of org chart of accountability into our operations portion of our business is the biggest piece right now. The efficiency we've seen in work output from the same people has been, it's got to be a 30 to 40% improvement. And it's the opposite that I would have done on my own. It just was wildly different to have that perspective. From there, now we're building off of that mindset. But the org chart of accountability was our first kind of real revolutionary change. Hit various roadblocks of our revenue growth, and it's starting to stagnate. But I can quickly see now that in that whole org chart reorganization, I got fired from operations, of course, my favorite part. Now I'm in marketing and sales, but I can already feel an immense amount of momentum, exposure. Business development takes a lot of just repeated exposure, getting in front of the right people, doing the right things, and having the confidence that the operations team is solving the problems. They're doing their work, and I get to be here with guys like you to help higher level thought, bigger visions on growth and operations and systems, people more engaged and clear on what they're supposed to be doing, how to hand off the ball to various stages within its progress through the business. It's been outstanding.
Did, when you went through the accountability chart, did it also help change sort of the multi-hat wearing that was happening before?
100%. I think there's a unique aspect of a mindset. Back in 97 when my dad took it over, and there's just not enough there to have enough people. That's mandatory. You're kind of like, what can I do right now that is the fastest possible way to get it done this minute? And that becomes your ingrained culture as you then slowly progress to the next stage. And it's hard to give up. Old habits die hard. So I think we still have a little bit of underlying old school thought of what's the fastest way to get it done right now. In the exact moment, that might be fast, but in the long run, are you developing repeatable systems? Is it clear what people are supposed to be working on? Somewhere in there, as you probably step out of that $3 to $5 million revenue range, where you probably can do most of it and be pretty effective, and you're in it, and it stays to going from that to maybe 10 to 12 million. You're just going to run yourself ragged, and you're going to find more things falling through the cracks. So you can't have a brand new business immediately roll out EOS. Maybe you could have the infrastructure and you'd have your names in all those seats. It might be a great way to start, but you do have to have some of the mentality as a brand new business. What's the fastest way I get this done right now? Because I'm clinging on. I'm just trying to hold on, trying to get my work done. To, I think even our structure now, as we become larger in our scale and more people operating within the management realm, is going to work probably up to, say, 20 million. And then you're probably going to find yourself somewhat reinventing that wheel a little bit again as you continue to scale. So I think you've got to then be more open to change moving forward, because you're going to probably be in a more constant state of change as you continue to scale. Then the first 10 years of a business, I mean, you're just hanging on. You're just trying to survive.
Is your dad accepting the changes, or because you're his kid, right? Like, and you're telling him like, hey, we need to do this, right? Like, how does that feel, and how's he taking that?
There's been several stages. There's been three major changes I've made to the business. One was getting on a SharePoint and creating a way for us to have more efficient ways to share files, have a more dynamic file sharing between our office down here, the office in Flag. He was kicking and screaming the whole way. This is awful. Nothing makes any sense. I can't find anything. What are you doing? Let's just go back to get to the other side of it as it started. He's like, this is amazing. I love it. Why didn't we do this a long time ago? Then the next one was we were starting to talk about redoing our logo. This is not our original logo. Our other one was kind of a house and a little bit more of a residential feel. I wanted to have more of just a general contracting feel. And I was talking about, hey, we need to get with the marketing company. We need to kind of rebuild our website. Let's freshen it up. I don't know why we need to go and talking about how we should be running our business. This is silly. Our logo's fine. We went through the process, and he's like, that was really good. We should have done this forever ago. And
I'm seeing a
EOS
pattern.
was kind of another similar thing as I was starting to pitch it to him to get everyone on board, because I knew that he and Phil and our other office manager, Nikki, but I think he's now started to look back on our big changes to I think he's getting more open to it. So same thing, we started our first EOS meeting, and he called me on the phone afterwards, him and I, and he just said, I got to say, I'm impressed. Like, this was a good call. I have finally seen what and how we're going to become a business, not just self-employed, not just guys who like to build things, but guys who are building a business. So I think through the course of the stuff that I've been trying to implement, first met with extreme resistance to, wait a minute, hold on, these are starting to work out. Now he's just like, hey, what do you think we should do? Let's do it. So there's been some momentum.
Okay.
I got the big, old, stubborn, boulder man. He's kind of rolling now. I got it in motion. So he's more in line with the change.
I want to go back to when you were doing the accountability chart. How surreal was it when your implementer told you that everyone's fired, right? Like, have you ever thought of that? Like, and in the moment, like, who could fire me, right? I'm owner, right? But now looking back on that experience and even like getting fired, how do you feel about that?
It was, as we got to, he could see us obviously, and that was the last thing I would have imagined coming out of his, but it gave enough pause to think, wait a minute, he's totally right. Why are we trying to build this chart around all the people that are currently doing that? We're just recreating what we've already got. To have a bit of a pause in your brain to be like, wait a minute, I am fired, because if I can't grow the business I'm looking to build, I should be fired, essentially. I'm not doing something the way it needs to be done. I need to change my perspective. So to then have to give the space to step back and just look at the business the way it needs to operate in your mind, and not curtailing to the people and our current kind of spider web of people, was very clarifying. It is hugely clarifying and I like to read a lot of books. I like to try to improve myself. It's part of stepping into the unknown and doing things you've never done before. And you read, you got to have an org chart. You got to have this, you got to have that. But they never really touch on why org charts are important. It's not about having a name and responsibilities. It's about, how does your business work? Take the names out of it altogether and build your whole business out. Again, I got it in 3 segments: marketing and sales. What does that look like? What are the responsibilities? What are they doing? Any person. And operations, we've got superintendent, project manager, APM, foreman, laborers. What does that look like? What does our skilled laborers do? What do our skilled tradespeople do? To sales, finance and HR, to just list out what needs to be done in the categories that you see it, and then put the people to it. It is the only way you can probably build a proper org chart, is to not have anyone in mind. I don't know how else you would do it, because we struggle with the same thing. I've never fully understood the concept until hey, you're fired, all of you. Stop. Like, everyone's out. The business is empty. What does the business need to do? And then who can get that done?
So I guess it put you and your dad in a different working relationship now. You want to talk about that for a bit?
Yeah, it's him and I have always had a really strong relationship, and we're comfortable pushing back a little bit and having direct conversations, knowing that it's not personal. It's not about feelings. It's always cordial. We're not the type to start screaming and yelling. That's not really our MO, but I think we can have clear and open conversation. I think at the end, when we were nominating Get It, Want It, Capacity to Do It process, and I got nominated for the visionary, I think in the moment, it's like, man, I kind of thought I was a visionary guy, but as we lay out what a visionary is, he's like, I'm not the visionary. I don't have all these gazillions ideas. What about this and millwork? And let's go here and let's do this and let's travel and let's get on with this. Let's go with city work. Let's do school work. How we get into it too, he's more the nuts and bolts, the guy who sits down and makes the cut sheet. I'm the guy that's like, hey, let's build this cabinet, that cabinet, this cabinet. Let's do these doors and this stuff. And he's the dude sitting back, wait, hold on. We got to have a cut sheet here, wild man. Get your cut sheet. What are we building? What pieces do we need? How long do they need to be? So that dynamic has really shifted, I think, created a lot of momentum. And I like the big picture stuff. I like to create relationships. I like to connect with people to kind of the traction boots on the ground. Okay, what does it look like? Here's the cabinet we've defined. How do we physically build it? And he's better at that part than I am, for sure. To sit down and be a little bit more methodical in his thought, think through the little pieces. How do you physically get it done? And then you combine those together. It's a good operation. I think we're both feeling really comfortable with where it ended up.
Were there any other aha moments as you're going through kind of the EOS process? Were there any other like big ahas that were kind of stopping you from growing? And then once you kind of started going through the process, you went, oh, this is stopping us.
Yes, just the physical way of how the identify, discuss, and solve process works. To invite people, it's not the blaming and shaming, and to give you a place to comfortably talk about, hey, we might have 40 outstanding issues, some small, some big, some might just be a big decision to make. Do we go after this one? Do we not? To then go down that list as a team, the kind of the head of the spear, the main leadership, the top level leadership, to look at what our issues and have them out there, pick what we think's most important, and then that's 1 hour of a 1.5 hour meeting to talk about how to solve problems. And I've noticed before I would talk with the estimator. We need to work on this. We need to work on this. We need to work on this. And I talk to project management. Hey, this is you piecemeal it and it's telephone pole and it gets lost in translation to coming together as a team to talk about the same problem all together to then uniformly come to a decision and execute that. We have dramatically improved. The other thing it highlights is what at face value look like it's running really well, bring it up to an IDS, and then you really start to break it down. Everyone's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah, you're right. This is just not working as well as I thought. Like our time cards, and I could go on and on about all the little things we've pulled out that as we started to discuss as a team could see without playing telephone pole, what about it just was causing a lot of sludge to dig through to get to the end and unleashed a lot of efficiency and human energy. Just to feel engaged that you're part of the overall solution. And now we've got our, leadership team level 10, and we've started our second level 10 with operations.
The departmental, yeah, nice.
There was a lot of efficiency with that process. Mike Madden, the guy, one of my main guys, as we were really committing to making US happen. There was a lot of major structural things happening in the world and he thought, they're going to fire me. I'm getting fired. Look at what's all happening here. But as I said, no, Mike, first of all, you're definitely not fired. Like you're going to be here forever. And unless you physically leave, which I'm going to really, really kind of hold on. I might even just hold on to your legs. But you're here long term. And he had his reluctance as he saw the structural changes happening to now like, man, this has fundamentally changed my day. I don't feel like I'm spinning my wheels going from here and here and here and here and going and work harder and harder all day to a strategic flow of information, leadership team, people I can start to lean on. And my bandwidth was limited in solving some of our operation problems to now Phil, who's one of our main guys, been with us forever, is now head of operations. And he's tied in the field all the time. His solutions and his bandwidth to solve those problems is far higher than mine. So that has been the IDS, to circle back to a very long-winded answer, uncovered a lot of little things to now also uncovering longer-term goals that we need to start to focus on over the quarter that aren't just a quick discussion. There are a lot of things you can fix with a quick discussion, start to improve. There are some things that are just a systematic improvement that need to be made in the business.
Yes. We've gone through, again, many years at this point. So we've hit many ceilings and have broken through many ceilings. But it is wild, and it always comes back to structure and like what you're doing, and something that maybe you built 2 years ago are like, oh, that doesn't work anymore. Now we got to rebuild this thing to make it different, to break through this new level we're at, which is amazing. Like that's like it is frustrating at times, certainly not to suggest it isn't. However, it is the growth, right? You can feel the growth happening. And as you keep going, your issues list change from like, we just got a lot of mess to fix to like, oh, we've got all this potential to do. And then it'll flip back and forth. And it's just it's such a fun process if you like building business. Like that's effectively, if you like building business, like EOS is such a amazing structure and tool for anybody.
It is, the guy that introduced me in the first place that even mentioned it for me to start to look into it was talking about the level 10 at the time, which meant nothing to me then.
Yep.
And he's like, we've gotten to the point now where the level 10 meeting of the week is one of our favorite activities. Everyone's coming in, they're engaged. It's time to talk about what we're struggling with, how we can improve it. And I can already see it happening. I look forward to the level 10 meeting every week, which it's funny to hear the common thread amongst anyone trying to operate and grow a business face the same challenges. While physically what you might produce as your end service or good may be different, but it comes down to having a team of people working together to produce a result. And EOS is a great way to put structure and intention behind it in an organized way. It's really interesting to see. I'm living deja vu. I look forward to level 10 every week. It's a great meeting.
For us, when we started, I think right in near the beginning, we had like 108 issues that we like identified as like our initial issues. I think there was a dozen bottlenecks that were just reliant on me, and it took like 2 years to like pull those apart before it was not reliant on me. And it's just wondrous. And even going from like tactical, right? Initially it was like tactical, like just felt like hammering at problems, but at least we were focused on hammering those problems. To now it's like longer term like strategic initiatives that take longer to just solve, right? And sometimes it's like one problem, we're solving and IDSing one problem like for the entire amount of time, or maybe even a couple weeks for the same problem because it's just that big or hairy or whatever it is, right? So it's definitely a wonderful structure. I can't say enough about it. And just when we think that we've like emptied our list, then we go through like our annual strategic plans, and then it just fills up our list all over again.
It fills it right back up. And it was the same thing. Phil, who's our head of operations, was like, well, I don't like having all these, I think we're at 30 things in our IDS right now. And I was talking to Phil, I was like, well, Phil, I think it's not, we're not trying to get to the point where we just have 3 and we solve them every time. It's about having that running list out there. And it's okay if it's not done. We regularly get onto 1 or 2 topics and we spend the entire time on that.
Yep.
But I think it's about, and what I've noticed too, as we go through and other discussions and some of those things that were issues start to fall off as you read through. It's like, oh, wait a minute, that's kind of worked itself out. Like it's not something you always have to IDS, but we have spent lots of time, multiple meetings, most of them on maybe 1 to possibly 2. Rarely do we get through 3.
That is very normal, especially if they're hairy issues. We had that for a while, especially when we were doing stuff around client experience.
Yeah.
The amount of time we spent around client experience, that was like a 2.5-year process of like hammering things around client experience. So we can talk offline about that. And for anyone else that's listening out there, boy, we've got stories to tell about that.
Yeah. But it is you. And then that turns into the rock and all the other longer term items. But yeah, there's just a lot of things, and there's just some things I think are going to be chronic challenging aspects of solving business. It's just the nature of the game.
Yeah. As much as I would love to, we could probably talk about this for hours. Justin, I think it's time for our last question.
All right.
Yeah, for sure. So we love to ask this question to everybody that comes on the show. If you could go back 20 years, what advice would you give yourself? 2005.
Go back to 2005, I would say be patient and persistent. It doesn't happen overnight. It is a culmination of experience, meeting opportunity, and you capitalize on it. If you do not have enough experience, you cannot even see the opportunity. So I think, as I came out young, I was gung-ho. I'm still a go-getter. I had really no tie to how long things take to get the right experience, to understand it holistically, and just find a way to not go ultra white hot and run yourself into the ground, to just constant, steady pressure and belief that you can make it happen. Whatever that might be, whatever is your place you want to get to, you can and will get there. Persistence and patience. Just keep pushing on.
It's great.
Oh, I
That's a
love
good
that.
one.
It's great. Yeah.
This has been a ton of fun. If somebody wanted to get a hold of you, Grant, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, we've got a website, holdsworthconstruction.com. You can see some of the work we've done before. My email is grant@holdsworthconstruction.com. You want to shoot me an email or give me a call. I like to talk on the phone. I think it's a good way to connect with people. You can call me on the phone, 928-607-2252. So any one of those formats work, and I am ready to go.
Awesome. Before we say our goodbyes, is there anything else you'd like to tell the people?
Stick with it, man. As soon as you think you've got it figured out, if you think it's going to be that hard times by 10, you'll have it figured out. If that's okay with you, go after it. Get it done.
Love it. This has been a ton of fun. As I mentioned in the beginning, just a good human being to know. So connect with him. You will not be disappointed in any way. And until next time, adios.
Adios.
Thanks for listening to Building Scale. To help us reach even more people, please share this episode with a friend, a colleague, or on social media.
Remember, the 3 pillars of scaling a business are people, process, and technology.
And our mission is to help the AEC industry protect itself by making technology easy.
So if you think your company's technology pillar could use some improvement, book a call with us to see how we can help maximize your IT and cybersecurity strategy. Just go to buildingscale.net/help.
And until next time,
Keep building scale.
scale.